In Washington and in Moscow, American astronauts and Soviet cosmonauts plan a joint mission. A rendezvous in space. Apollo and Soyuz. So there came to man the first results of a new age, born a dozen years before. The age of man in space. Man in space. A handful of human beings challenge for all deep-held convictions born of man's whole experience on Earth. An imprint on the human mind. The certainty that any goal man sets can be achieved. And tangible reality for ancient dreams. Even children around the world become familiar with each sophisticated step in the new ritual of man's spaceflight. The first small steps bridging cultures and continents for all mankind. And then a new impossibility achieved. Man reaches for the moon and, almost unnoticed in the spectacle, forever frees himself from the limitations of his past. The beginning of a new renaissance. Between July 16, 1969, and December 19, 1972, 12 men from Earth, beginning with Neil Armstrong, landed to explore the moon. Their accomplishment, still only fantasy 10 years before, became almost routine to a watching world, as the men of Apollo began a new age of discovery. The last Apollo mission. Eugene Cernan and Harrison Smith pack up their treasure of rock and dust and photography. The wheel, one of man's earliest discoveries, rolls its final turns across the moon. A final check of tools brought from Earth to study the moon, the sun, the heavens, and the Earth. One of 6 Apollo stations still sending information back to Earth.
Seconds. 10 seconds. 99, proceeded, 3, 2, 1, ignition. Right away, Houston. Vector good.
Liftoff. The men of Apollo 17 went home.
That's here you have good product.
This was the last time man would go to the moon and return with these primitive space vehicles. Each man who has gone into space, the astronauts say, has been profoundly changed. To walk on the moon, to ride alone in space, and to view the Earth, fragile, lonely, delicate, and small. Is this perhaps the most powerful image in the mind of man today? Re-entry. The experience of a few, profoundly shared by millions around the world. Has this new experience, as some philosophers and scientists suggest, forever changed our relationship to Earth, to space, and to each other? Splashdown. Mission completed. What was the impact of Apollo? How deeply and firmly imprinted on man's collective mind are those images of men leaving Earth to voyage through space, land on the moon, explore its surface, and then lift off to return home to Earth, all in a handful of years. Centuries passed before models of Columbus ships appeared in museums created to hold the relics of history, or Leonardo's early designs for once impossible manned flight were there for all to see. Today, Apollo artifacts of only yesterday already fill new space museums, projecting the future, preserving the past. A measure of time compressed by technology and of increasing rates of change today. All this may also be a measure of man's ability to realize once impossible dreams. For having landed on the moon, what goal is there that he cannot set for himself, however difficult? Moonstone. A piece of another world. A lodestone, drawing all who visit here. A tangible link between the heavens and Earth. To the scientist leading us into the future, even a tiny fragment of lunar rock reveals a whole new microcosm. An inner world strange in the likeness of its form and structure to the outer universe. man looks inward on this strange new composition. And with his new technology, man looks ever farther, deeper into the cosmos, on whose threshold he may also stand today. From the beginning of our time on Earth, we have tried to understand our world and its place in some larger scheme of things. Slowly, we formed the great questions Apollo is helping to answer now. What is the moon? The Earth? What are the planets in this tiny solar system of ours that once seemed to us so vast and unreachable? What formed the sun? At the Lunar Science Institute near Houston, Texas, scientists look for answers. It was years after Darwin returned in the Beagle before The Origin of Species appeared in 1859. Another half-century before its impact could be measured in our lives. Already, Apollo has begun to change our concepts in geology, physics, chemistry, teaching the moon's age, 4.5 thousand million years, revealing an evolved planet whose origin, history, and composition differ from Earth's. And Apollo has led to the view that each of the planets may have its own unique chemical composition in a solar system far more complex and diverse than we thought it was. On the moon, we explored a once unknown age of solar history. Its lunar record may tell us how the sun, the Earth, the moon, and other planets were formed, and also lead to a deeper understanding of Earth's origins, early history, and future. Data from Apollo continues to come in. It will take years, even decades, to analyze, absorb, and understand the full significance of all this new information. Yet much is already reflected in the changing textbooks of our schools and in the changing concepts and ideas our minds are moving on to explore. The things that matter in science, says Nobel Prize-winning chemist and cosmologist Harold Urey, are the things that lead on to something else, to new discoveries. We are looking beyond the solar system now. Astronomy, once forbidding and remote, enters a new golden age. Millions now follow satellite discoveries of neutron stars, fast-spinning pulsars, the black holes of Cygnus, and quasars that question all our assumptions about the universe. For decades, only a few grasped the meaning of E equals mc squared, which may be, said Einstein, only a local phenomenon after all. Soon, millions may grasp the formulation of new unifying theories of space, time, mass, and energy. And what of the technology making possible this new age of discovery, simultaneously shared by 700 million around the world through satellite TV and radio communications?
Propellants will begin to
In 1961, there was only the basic science and technology to achieve Apollo's goals. The peaceful exploration of the moon, said Wernher von Braun, forced their development as only war has in the past, producing a great burst of new technology, spinning off thousands of products affecting all our lives. The advance of computer technology alone forced a rigor and discipline in thinking and problem solving new to man. All this is now well known. But little is realized of the people involved. How management and organization brought together hundreds of manufacturing firms, thousands of men and women joining their skills to produce the millions of Apollo parts and pieces, all coming together in the right places at the right times with the assurance the program would succeed. Mechanic and scientist, seamstress and astronaut, bargeman and project manager, glove maker, assembler and machinist. The men and women of Apollo will never forget the drive to achieve their common goal and final sharing of success. It was, said one, as if someone had told the men building the vessels of Columbus what they were building, where these ships would sail, and all that their voyage of discovery might mean. If we need Apollo technology to manage Earth as a total system, Apollo management techniques may show us how to succeed with a challenge of this magnitude. But what of man himself? An organism evolved to survive in Earth's atmosphere and gravity. Apollo taught scientists to look at man in a new way, to consider the normally functioning human organism in a dynamic situation, to see not only the wholeness of the human body, but also the interrelationship and functioning of each of its systems and of each vital organ. Each Apollo astronaut was the subject of continuing examination long before he first entered space. The problem, to determine how man, as well as his tools and equipment, would function in an environment in which he had never lived before. The solution, simulation, creating in laboratories on Earth new environments yet to be explored. In advance of his journey into space, each man learned to function and to survive. Simulation. Often in a closed environment, sealed off from Earth's atmosphere. Duplicating a space environment. Its motion, pressure, heat, stress, isolation, even weightlessness and lunar gravity. Long before his mission, each man knew, as Apollo scientists knew, how he would live and work in a hostile atmosphere, sealed in his spacesuit or in the capsule of his craft, tethered to life on Earth by only the slender threads of transmitted voices and telemetry. And Concealed in space, man saw, as we have come to see, that Earth itself is a capsule in a sealed environment, alone in space, dependent on its fragile sheath for life. Is it over? All that began in this control room at Marshall Space Flight Center, where Saturn was born to lift Apollo missions free of Earth's gravity? Galileo, said Arthur C. Clarke, would have envied modern man's technology as much as his reaching out to touch the moon. In physics and in life, there is a wave effect. From a central point of impact, waves move out to influence matter, men, ideas. From Apollo technology, new goals have emerged, extending man's studies of space and Earth phenomena. Spacecraft of the future will be tested here on this structure where Saturn rockets first came roaring into captive life. People still come to visit scenes where once there was a frenzy of activity. Historic sites where man's journey to the moon began. Do they come only to recall the spectacle? Were they only spectators of another passing event in the decade as each new rocket lofted its mission into space? Was the rising excitement of man's interest in space during those 10 Apollo years only a passing fad? Or do men realize that Apollo may have brought to them a new way of thinking, of perceiving, of identifying and solving problems, even those challenging us here on Earth? Apollo discovered for man the smallness of Earth within the vastness of the universe. In 1530, the Polish monk Copernicus found that not Earth, but the sun is the center of our solar system. A century later, his discovery began the Great Renaissance, whose ripples extend into our own time. For us, it is only a few years after another great discovery. Apollo shrank to days, sometimes to hours, the once centuries-long gap between the need for an idea or a tool and its discovery, forcing man once again to re-examine all his earlier perceptions and beliefs. Man faces growing problems on Earth, impossible till now to solve. Inflation and hunger. The ravages of war. Natural disasters. Waning resources and energy. Overpopulation. Pollution. Health. Apollo has given us means to study our Earth and its problems from a new vantage point in space. and to approach these problems with a new technology, a new insight, and a new confidence. We cannot know Apollo's final impact or how man will ultimately use Apollo's gifts. But knowledge begets knowledge.
Okay, let's see if we can do some kind of an experiment.
These children,
with,
born in the Apollo decade, a generation never knowing a time when man could not reach out and grasp the moon, never knowing Earth as anything but small and fragile in the darkness of space. Their future, how may it differ now from all of man's past? Has this new view of Earth begun, as astronomer Fred Hoyle suggests, a second great awakening, a new renaissance? I am not, said astronaut Russell Schweikert, the same man I was before Apollo. None of us may be the same. Wherever man may go in space, or his extending grasp and vision reach as he moves on, history may see the Apollo years as the time when man, in reaching for the moon, first truly discovered Earth and came to understand himself and was forever changed. Becoming, at last, as he always dreamed he was, aware of his fellowship in a true brotherhood of man on Earth in this new age of man in space.